You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Hello and welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with me, your host, Damian Swaby. The podcast where we venture behind the scenes with some of the most compelling voices in visual storytelling. Today, we look through the lens of a remarkable filmmaker whose narratives have captivated audiences and juries around the globe. Andrea Ashton, a Bay Area native turned New Yorker, wife, mother, and award-winning force in filmmaking, has been weaving her personal experience in cinematic gold. From the domestic dramas of her childhood to the complex tapestry of human emotion that she captures on screen. Andrea's films go beyond mere storytelling. They invite us to feel, reflect, and connect. She took her first step into the world of film with Pick a Color, a short film that only triumphed in film festivals but also earned a place in the prestigious archives of the Academy of Motion, Picture and Arts and Sciences. But that was just the beginning. Her screenplay, When Joy Fell, broke molds and expectations, securing accolades across the world. Her journey didn't pause for life's intermissions. Through years of nurturing her family and crafting corporate videos, she still worked on her brilliant skills. This led to her becoming a finalist for Sundance Feature Film Creative Producing Lab and Fellowship and Film Independent Screenwriting Lab. With over 60 days of shadowing veteran TV directors, memberships in influential women's filmmaking groups, and a passion for telling female stories in the industry, Andrea's story is one of relentless inspiration and transformation. Join us as we jump into the world of storytelling with Andrea, who brings authenticity and heart to the silver screen, and discover how Andrea Ashton's unique vision has shaped an incredible mark on the world of film. Hi, Andrea. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I've had a great morning. Been watching some more of your work again. So that's really good for me. I've enjoyed watching it all. Such a varied amount, a quality amount of work, I must say. So
I should send you links to more because I feel like a lot is like behind, password walls and such.
Oh, okay. Please do. The more the merrier. Go free, go crazy. Send me everything. As I've said, I've seen a lot of your work. Really enjoyed it. You're a New York-based filmmaker, and I think you have been for a while now.
Yeah. I went to NYU and I just haven't left.
You went to NYU.
Yeah.
Great. Tell us, what was it like at NYU, and did you enjoy your experience there?
I did. It was very like film theory and studying the art of filmmaking. And once I got out in the real world, I was kind of like, wait a minute, where are the practical tools? Like, how do I actually work on a film set, like a real film set that isn't like four of my friends?
Yeah.
And they didn't really prepare me for that. But obviously I learned a lot in the process just about the art of filmmaking. And I made a lot of connections that to this day are still helpful to me in the business.
That's amazing. A lot of people have said that have come on this podcast, that the great thing about film school was they were able to make connections and take those connections with them throughout their career. What type of connections did you make, and how has it helped you further your own career?
Well, like one of my friends got me my first professional indie film job right out of film school, which was to be an AD on a teeny tiny independent feature. And that kind of kicked off me being able to jump from indie feature to indie feature in various roles. I didn't stay with being an AD. I ended up going into the production office doing initially assistant coordinating, then coordinating, and eventually production managing. And more recently, I've produced a few micro budget projects and shorts. But it's not my passion. Producing is not my passion.
So what is your passion? Is it, am I right by saying the producing is part of what you do, because as a director or even as a writer director, you kind of end up co-producing your project? Is that why you produce?
Yes and no. At one point I was producing also just for money, and kind of like I wanted to see how the wheels turn and how to get things made from that perspective before I was in the creative chair.
I see. And again, sorry to go back to NYU, but it's a historic, worldwide known, brilliant institution. You say you learn about theory. That's quite broad in a sense, like film theory. Are there any things in particular theatrical that you've learned that really helped you in your career?
I was exposed to movies I probably never would have watched on my own independently. And I have appreciation now that, coming out of suburban America, we weren't exposed to a lot of like sort of arty and more interesting filmmakers that back then, you'd have to go to an art theater. It wasn't like we had online resources to
Oh, yeah.
catch all this stuff. Like I just didn't even know it existed.
I see what you mean. I think in London, from what I've seen, before online services were available, it was either at a theater or like even at certain museums, they would have
Yeah,
rooms with,
that's
you
true.
know, watch just white noise on a screen, and someone would say it's a film, and I'd be scratching my head afterwards. In terms of short films, I was very, very, very happy to have watched one of your, well, much of your work, but one short film in particular, because it was the first one I watched. And I really would like to know the inspiration behind your short film, Pick a Color, and how it felt to have it archived by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Yeah, well, technically it was my senior thesis film, but as soon as I got out of NYU, I hadn't finished it. And I took my time because I started working professionally in film, and it took 6 years to complete. But it was something that I'd been gestating for years and years. It's actually based on a true story, my own personal story. So they say, write what you know. I did. And it was initially a short story that I just thought would live as a short story. But I had a filmmaking instructor at NYU say, this is great. You should turn this into a movie. And I did. And it was, a passion project. It was a lot of money for somebody who's, in school and barely can eat anything more than some ramen noodles. But I did raise
They are
some
tasty
money.
though.
Yeah, I don't, sometimes people say, don't go to film school, just spend that money on making a film. And they do have a point there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was excited to make it, worried that people who were actually, referenced in it might see it one day, but I don't think that's happened still.
I loved the film, and sorry to hear that it's like personal in that way to you, but it felt very personal, and it felt like someone was writing about someone who they knew or know or themselves. How does it feel when you put pen to paper, putting that story out there that's inside you, and giving that piece of paper to cinematographers, to cameramen, to actors, because you're literally putting yourself out there in a way that many people don't like being exposed?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it's a combination of sort of catharsis, but also vulnerability. I had, it wasn't anything new to my immediate family that this all went down kind of how it did, but it's a different thing when they see it on film. So, I had to take some creative license because we are filmmakers here and I wasn't making a documentary. So there are some things that are just fun and, not related to what really went down. But I'd say 90% of it is true to fact. Yeah. But going back to your question about the Academy. So when the film did the festival circuit, it won several festivals that made it Academy eligible that year, which was amazing and really special. It was at the Brooklyn the Brooklyn Film Festival. And there was, at the time, it's been renamed, but it was called LA Shorts. Now I think it's Los Angeles International Shorts or something. It's one or the other, but it won both of those festivals. And so therefore I had to send the film to the Academy, and it was up for consideration. It was not shortlisted as far as I know, but back then things were a little different. So there wasn't like a formal, announcement of things that are shortlisted. So it didn't make it at all. And so I thought that's the end of it. And I don't know, 15 years later, they reached out to me and they said, hey, we came across your negative because it had been at DuArt, which was a film lab that had gone out of business. And somehow they managed to sift through DuArt's negatives, which I didn't even realize they were going out of business. So I feel like grateful that they found it, because it would have just been tossed in the trash. But they reached out to me and said, well, your film, we want your film in our archive. And I was like elated. And it was like, even though I thought it was just shoved aside back in the day, like I was still on their radar and they still wanted to keep my film. And I decided to remaster the film a few years ago. So I reached out to them because they had the negative and they let me borrow the negative. They paid for the remastering, or at least a good portion of it. And they said to me, you're a filmmaker that is now one of our filmmakers, and please send us additional work that you have. It has to be on film, though. They're pretty strict about the film thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been amazing. It was, a long awaited sort of honor.
So obviously money is a big thing for filmmakers, having the money to finish films. But what exactly took so long? Why did it have to take 6 years to finish being made?
Just my schedule. I was working, like I went from feature film to feature film to feature film, and the hours are so long, and it was a 30-minute short. It's no minor short. Yeah. and so part of it was not having the money to finish it, and part of it was not having the time to finish it. So it was a combined factor.
That makes sense. And time flies sometimes. You'll have a project and you think, oh my gosh, it's been 2 years, 3 years, 6 years. And then you think, all right, okay, I've got the time. I'm going to do it now.
I can say that the time, though, probably helped the project, because I grew as like a human and wisdom. And, I looked at it with different eyes. So I was able to make decisions that I think made it a better film later on.
Ah, that's good to know. A lot of us can learn from that. But how do you navigate from films such as that brilliant short film, to some of the corporate work you do? Because corporate video and passion projects that really resonate with you personally, as well as professionally, can sometimes resonate in certain different ways. So how do you compare the two?
That was just a sheer necessity for in an income, and it is mind-numbing work. Like, I don't recommend anyone does it except for the money. Yeah. There's definitely no real creative satisfaction in corporate videos, but it can pay well and, put food on your table.
That's very true. But some of your corporate videos, they still felt like they had a bit more than just a kind of talking head, generic robotic type.
Well, that's nice to hear.
And I'm not knocking corporate video producers, because that's basically what I do. So, I can't really be bad about it in that way. But like the one you did for Canon C1 plus promo, I felt the people speaking really did feel connected to the product, and they really did feel like, this is something they are interested in. But it's good to know you feel that way. A lot of corporate video producers, we're not alone in thinking, oh my gosh, if I wasn't paid to do this, I would probably drown myself in the bath tomorrow morning.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you do your best to try to make it as pleasing to you as possible. And maybe sometimes the people on the higher rungs are like, oh, I like that too. So you do on occasion get that support, and you can be happy with some things every now and then.
Now and then. And I also love your documentaries from what I've seen. The one that resonated with me is one I was hoping one day in London, where I'm from and where I live, could happen, was the Green Chimneys documentary. I just love the idea of seeing these kids potentially taken out of urban areas. I wasn't completely sure, and put into a place where there's like horses, there's plants, there's loads of green space, and how it affects them and their behavior and how they can see things in a different way. How did you become involved with that project? And
That was also a spin-off of the corporate stuff that I was doing. We, as a company, occasionally would do pro bono work. So that was a pro bono project, which, those are actually the few things that kept me going, is when we'd have something that was, very soul fulfilling. And that particular organization, I never even knew existed. And somebody affiliated with our company had heard about it. And so that actually was a video that they played at one of their fundraising events.
Okay. How did it go down?
I think they made some money. Yeah. I mean, it's a touching little film. Like, it stands, like, you see it stood alone just as it is. Like, it doesn't read like, hey, give us money. Like, it's just sort of explaining the program, and you see these kids' lives just transformed. And the adults that are running this school too, you can see how much joy and fulfillment it gives them.
Brilliant. I could see that happening. I really did like it. I did think, I'd like to see more of that stuff where I'm from in London, that's for sure. And you've got a varied, obviously, style, and you do varied things as a filmmaker. How do you balance being a professional and your personal life? Because sometimes filmmaking, it's long hours, it's long days. It can take you away from home. How do you balance the situation and keep yourself sane, really?
I can't say that I've really found the perfect balance until recently. I worked in corporate videos, which actually the hours were more sane. And I was raising 2 kids.
Oh, good on you.
So my usual hours were 10 to 6. So that's pretty good for corporate world. And so I'd be there to get them to school and be there for dinner at night. So that seemed like very sane. Once I would work on, and I had to give up working on TV and indies at that time because the hours were just, 12-hour days. I couldn't do that. So I am grateful to the corporate video world for that, what that gave me. Once my kids got a little older, I was able to start doing the long hours again. Because they could take care of themselves and, they were more independent. But there was a chunk of time when they were, up until they were like 11 or 12 years old, that I needed to be there a lot more.
And you're a part of the New York City Women Filmmakers and CineFem. So I would imagine, I hope I'm right, that promoting the female voices in the industry is something that you're close to and something you're passionate about, especially as a female filmmaker. How did you get involved with these organizations, and how do you see the future for filmmakers that are female?
Wow, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. The first thing is that when I was coming up in the industry, it was not supportive in terms of other women were not supporting each other because there were so few roles for us to take that it was a little cutthroat. It was like, I'm not going to support her because then that might cost me my job. Okay. We're looking at numbers here, and it's kind of like 1 out of 10 of us would get a job, whereas the other 9 people are all men, and also white men usually as well. But it wasn't a supportive environment. So I didn't get involved in these organizations until the last 10 years. And I've seen a sea change. Like, it was a little previous to Me Too, but women suddenly started realizing that it was backwards to just be like, I'm not going to support that person because that might cost me my job. And all of a sudden it just seemed like everybody was like, if we're all in this together and supporting each other, we will get work. And it's kind of working. It's not ideal. Like, I think numbers are still not as good as they were in the 90s, even for number of women filmmakers.
Really?
Yeah, wow. It's shocking. But at least we are supporting each other more and are more involved. I would say NYWIFT, you didn't mention that one. That's here in New York. New York Women in Film and Television is probably the biggest supporter here for women. CineFem's LA-based, but a little smaller. And the one that was NYC Women Filmmakers has renamed itself, PANO. and they are supportive of pretty much all filmmakers who are discriminated against. So it's a more broad category. But yeah, this is very much a passion point for me and how I make my projects. It was pointed out to me through an article. I'd say like maybe 10 years ago, I read this article that was like, hey, guess what? Everything you watched as a child growing up was made by white men. And this has formed who you are because you watched so much TV. You like your impression of what it is to be human, what it is to be in society, what it is to be a woman, what it is to interact with other people was all based on white men's idea of what that should be. And I had sort of like a personal crisis. Like, would I be the same person I am today if it wasn't for how that stuff shaped me? And I realized that if women are not, the ones who are the storytellers, women, people of color, everyone who has been left out of this, if we're not the ones telling the stories, then we're not seeing what we are and who we are naturally. And we might be creating personas that are not true to who we should be.
Gosh.
I know.
Wow, I'm just trying to digest that.
No, it was like mind-blowing for me too. It was really upsetting. I was like, shit, really?
Yeah.
I've been looking at women through the male gaze my whole life and didn't even know I was doing that.
So when you're a part of these organizations, have you had the chance to say to certain men that what you've just said to me, and how do they react towards that?
I can't say it's come up very often because a lot of people just don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But, definitely with women, I bring it up all the time. And those who don't already know it are like, holy shit, like you're right. But most people, it is eye-opening. It's kind of like we forget how much media influences us.
Yeah, that's something I've spoken about quite a bit here in London, how it influences all of us. And unfortunately, sometimes it's not for the right reasons at all. And the effects of that type of influence can really, really tear a lot of things and tear a lot of people apart in ways that we don't want to see anymore. We want to see change. So these organizations you're a part of, what exactly and how exactly do they help female filmmakers? Do they help with a script consulting? Do they advise on the best practices in terms of someone wanted to apply for funding? Or are they more about moral support, a group, a community for people to live and communicate with each other?
I think they're more of the latter. They definitely have programs that people can go through to improve their actual craft. But I would say the most important thing they offer is the community. And, like we were talking about in the beginning, when you go to film school, you make a community. It's kind of the same thing with these organizations, except in this case, you're just specific to a gender or whatever it is that may be what you identify with. And you have these people now lifting you up, hypothetically, to get work, and also to be referrals and recommendations. So that's the best case scenario. It is a large organization, NIWIFT, so I can't say that, I'm taking full advantage of it just because my life is pretty busy. But I know people who are very involved. They send out almost like daily emails, just profiling different members and their work. And, if somebody's doing a fundraiser, they'll highlight that in their emails. So I think it's probably, the people who are taking advantage of it are probably doing very well with the community helping them.
I'm going to put some of the links to those organizations in the show notes if anybody would like to check them out, any female filmmakers or even males if you want to see what's going on. And
NIWIFT has male members too.
Oh, great. Oh, really good. Sorry, I didn't think.
No, I mean, it's not very common, but they are there.
So you've obviously tried to do so many different things within film and done them well, and you're a part of these organizations. But a lot of us try to do pilots for various different projects. You've tried to do a pilot. You've done a pilot, called In the Grey for a new internet series. How did you approach doing the pilot compared to your short films? And tell us what happened with the pilot after you completed it.
Yeah, that one is like a documentary sort of talk interview style series, and I was brought on by the creator. And the creator, she basically, when my job as a director, and I directed and I helped form the edit, and but then she was like, okay, I'm off now, I'm gonna try to get this made, and I didn't hear anything more. So I wish I could say something positive about it, but no, I mean, that happens a lot as like quote unquote directors for hire, even if I'm not making much or any money, is that whoever is originating the project then kind of goes off with it, and I'm out of the picture unless they feel compelled to update me or I bug them. But yeah, that's one of those cases. Another pilot I did, which was I don't know, you haven't seen it yet because it is behind a or like behind a password, is Rockaway, which is a narrative one, and it's about cold water surfers in the Rockaways, and it's a comedy, and it's like so fun and great, and that's one that I'd love to see get developed. It went through the festival circuit a couple years ago, like mid-pandemic, unfortunately. So like it got into Tribeca's.
Congrats.
Yeah, they have this program just for pilots. And then they had meetings for the creator, and I participated in them, even though I was not the creator. And that seemed like it could have led to something, but I wonder if just the sheer timing of it being like in the midst of the madness, like it's kind of fizzled away.
No, that's a shame. It's a big shame. But luckily I was able to see Lies, a digital series pilot.
Yes.
That, and we were speaking about female filmmakers and females, how we have seen them through the eyes of white men growing up because they were making all the projects. But Lies has a woman at the center of the film, a very confident, in my opinion, powerful presence on screen. And the film was shot beautifully. I really love the way it was shot. I managed to watch the behind the scenes of the project on YouTube also, which I enjoyed. Tell us a bit about that film and casting the lead actress and setting the film up all together.
I mean, that was a really cool project because it was an organization that was trying to kick off kind of a filmmaker networking and just like not just filmmakers, but the whole industry. They wanted to create kind of a networking site. And so they thought that making a few short films would be a good way to kick that off. And so they made, I think 6 shorts, but they were all pilots. They were all supposed to be pilots. And they put out like a nationwide call for directors, writers, actors, you name it. I was one of the pool that applied. I was selected. They then went nationwide to find actors. And I was pretty much not involved with the nitty gritty, but once they'd narrowed the pool down, I was able to meet some of the actors in person. And Estrella, who is the star in that one, she came and auditioned in New York, and she just blew everyone away. Like, she was so good. And it became kind of obvious that she was the choice. Like, most of the time I feel like when I pick the lead in something, it's sort of like there's no one else who can be that lead. Like, they are that person. The
day itself, or was it a 2-day shoot or a 1-day shoot? How many days did you do to complete the project?
Yeah, I think it was 2 days, and it was 2 tight days. Yeah, it was packed. It was in LA, that shoot, because that's where the organization is based out of. And we managed to use one of the founders' houses for the shoot. So we had a location, and it was a really great experience. And it was one of those where, again, I was kind of a director for hire technically. But in this case, I got to see it through all the way. Unfortunately, they did not live up to their dream of like making this a big networking site. I think they kind of missed the window. There were some other ones coming up at that time. But all those founders are off doing interesting things still.
Another short that you made that I really loved, and doing this podcast, I get to speak to so many great, talented people and recognize certain faces and from films that I love. And one film that I love is Medicine for Melancholy, directed and written by Barry Jenkins. So when I came across The Last/First Kiss, I saw the lead actress in Medicine for Melancholy in this film. And what I also loved about this film is that it reminded me of another director that I really like, Richard Linklater, and his work in Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, two films that I completely love. The third one's great as well, but I love the first two in that series. Tell us how you became involved with The Last/First Kiss, and what was the experience like for you? And I'm particularly interested to know how you directed a film that was based outdoors for the entire film.
Lucky Mother Nature. Yeah. This was, I'm trying to remember what platform he posted on. But Andrew, who's the writer producer of it, he posted like looking for a director somewhere. I don't even know if that platform exists anymore. It might've been Mandy.com, but
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, I responded. We hit it off immediately. I loved his script was just so refreshing and unique. And it was really important to him that it was a story that featured people of color, that like didn't like focus on all the people of color tropes. And it was just about two people like having a day. And it was I just loved it. And Tracy was always on his mind. Actually, he like sought her out, and I'd seen Medicine for Melancholy, and I thought she was incredible. And she, fortunately was available, and we had to fly her in from LA to New York, but she did it. She was so game for like very lo-fi production.
Yeah.
And we were lucky that she was so amenable, and she did a great job. It just was a great experience.
And is Andrew Black? Because
Yes,
wondered...
he's from Bermuda.
Oh, okay,
Of
cool.
all places, yeah, and relocated to New York.
Because I watched it and it felt refreshing for me in that way. Not that I'm like the lead guy in it, but it's good to see a character like that where I felt like that's just kind of similar to how I am and some of my friends were just kind of walking around. We see a nice girl. Oh, okay, then, that type of thing. So it was really enjoyable to watch that. But with a film like that, you said you was lucky with the weather. How many members of the crew were there? Because shooting outdoors, in my experience, if you have too many people with you, it can cause somewhat of a distraction. And also so many moving parts in an indie film can actually hinder you at times, in my opinion, in my experience. How many crew members did you have for shooting that film, and what was the experience like with them?
I don't know the exact number, but it was definitely under 20. I'd say most projects that I worked on, the number's under 20 people. We, had the advantage of shooting in large parks. We shot in both Central Park and Prospect Park, which is Brooklyn's version of Central Park. And there was a little bit of crowd control we had to deal with now and then, but for the most part, you almost need a good number of people just to get stuff back and forth to your vehicle, which is probably not close by. But we had the park's approval, and both parks. And I recommend working with, a streamlined crew that's, like that in any circumstance anyway, if possible, just because it does make things go quickly. But at the same time, like it wasn't a deterrence to not be like a crew of like 3 or 4 people. Like it was fine.
All of these projects you've done, we've spoken about a few, and there's many more on your website that I'll include in the show notes. What is your favorite project and why?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe Pick a Color, because it kind of kicked everything off, and it's the only one besides, you haven't seen yet Love. I did the quotes because love is actually quote unquote love. That film I'm going to make live on my website. In fact, you've just reminded me I should make that live like right away because it is available now to the public, but it's not on my website yet. So I'll put that on there. And that's a short 4-minute film. And I wrote that one as well. But almost everything else I've just directed. So Pick a Color and Love are the two that I wrote and directed myself. And there's something about that. The only reason I haven't written and directed more projects is cost. It's you know, it's a lot easier to jump on somebody else's project when they're financing it.
That is for sure.
Yeah, I'm not saying I won't do it again, but I definitely try to avoid spending my own money if I can.
Yeah, fair enough. That's I think we can all understand that. As someone from the Bay Area, you know, to an award-winning filmmaker, what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers who are just starting out?
Keep making stuff because it's a trial and error kind of industry, and we all think we see the perfect film in our heads, but executing it is a very different animal. I think every time I direct something, I'm learning something new. Every time I write something, I'm learning something new, and I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, so I have a lot of experience that never ceases to grow more vast. There's just an infinite number of ways you can do things. So figuring out what works for you and how to best sort of express your voice and your vision for something is not something you're going to know right off the bat. It's something that you have to like employ and practice. And also just tenacity. Like this business is hardcore. Like I have wanted to drop out on multiple occasions. Yeah. And I've kind of finally come to the conclusion that if I'm not enjoying the process, then that's a reason to drop out. But as long as I'm still enjoying what I'm doing and having fun and getting to know people and feeling like creative satisfaction from things, it's worth the process, even if I'm not, you know, Steven Spielberg at this point.
Great answer. And I completely agree and I completely understand. Andrea, thanks so much for coming on Filmmaking Conversations. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. You're a writer, director, producer. You said you have 2 children, so I understand things get busy. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access.